but just know that it will help maximize everybody's functionality and keeping us on task. All right, you know what? I think I'm going to get started because honestly, we have a lot to cover tonight, and I am so excited to have everybody. Welcome to our first ever, who would have guessed, virtual travel night. This is normally when we're kicking it off and we're supposed to be having cocktails and food and everything, and here we are, social distancing. I'm Linda Bent. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the owner of Pique Travel. And I am so thankful to have you with us. And I hope it will be a great night for you to be inspired and to reconnect with us. We've missed you all. And if you're new to us, we can't wait to see you or talk to you in person. If we have to do a Zoom talk in the meantime, let's do it. But I wanted to welcome you. So thank you for joining us and taking your time out to be here. One of the things I did want to go over is I am grateful for an amazing team that we have. And even though I call this slide team of designers, it is not just meant to be designers. You're going to see some in-house people listed down at the bottom too, and they make us look good. But many of you know some of our on staff designers, Anne, Aaron, Chris, Liz, and several of us. Jim and I are the owners of Pique, of course. But what you may not know is that we also have 15 affiliates located all over the country: San Francisco, Chicago area, New York, and lots of other places around the country. So we are thankful. Portland, Chris is one of our newest affiliates in Portland. So we're all over. And I hope that you get to meet many, if not all of them at some point in time, but they're very talented and very dedicated to travel and addicted to this just as much as we are. So if you were able to join Jess a little bit earlier, if you logged on early for the little tutorial, great. If you didn't, I'm just going to go through a couple key things really quickly. One is we are going to be using the chat function quite a bit. And I already mentioned that your audio and video are going to be off. It will just help us be as productive and as efficient with this precious time that we have together. So chat is going to be really important. And this just gives you a little bit of an idea. If you hover over your Zoom screen, you're going to see that icon maybe in the top bar or the bottom bar that says chat. Just click on that and a white box is going to come up. Some of you are already typing in Zoom and saying hello, and hello to the Kimes and Mickey and Maki and everybody. It's awesome. This is how we're going to stay engaged, because I don't want to be that presenter that just presents to, even though there's a lot of you, I'm kind of presenting to my computer screen, so it's kind of hard. So the chat function is really going to be an important piece for us. And two things to know: Jess mentioned she's going to be helping us with our technical side. So if you have some technical issues that you think she can help with, just type tech in the chat and she'll reach out to you personally. She also put her phone number in there if you need to text her. So use her as you need to. And then Erin Green on our team is going to be helping me monitor the chat, so that at the end, when we open it up for discussion, she will have been monitoring. She might respond to a couple of you on the fly if it's an easy answer, but then she'll help me at the end come on and we'll answer out any outstanding lingering questions. But again, this is how we're going to engage, and I don't want this to be passive, so I really appreciate seeing the chats come in. If you happen to be on a cell phone, Jess mentioned it's going to look just slightly different. Go down to more, to the dots on the more, hit chat, and then up comes your chat function. When you want to come back to the screens, just hit close and you'll toggle back to the screen. And then she also told you this is not required. We're recording this, so if you miss something or it's not working perfectly, just know that it's being recorded. But ideally, you would do a little bit of side by side is how you would pick the screen viewing, and it shows you up here. Click side by side and then speaker view, and hopefully you'll see my slides and me at the same time. And again, if this isn't working perfectly for you, don't worry about it. If you can see the screen and hear me, that's really all you need. Okay, we're gonna test the chat function. If you don't mind, tell me, if there were no restrictions right now, if it were travel of yesteryear, where would you go? Where are you yearning to go? use the chat and just type what do you want? Colombia, Disney World. Oh man, talk about not social distancing. Disney World, Greece, Barcelona, Cinque Terre, a lot of Europe, a lot of Africa, New Zealand, Scotland. Love it. Antarctica, Maki, that's coming up for you. Love it. Hawaii, I see a couple Hawaiis. We were supposed to go for spring break, so we're feeling a little ditched on that. Love it. Liz, of course, would always love to go back to London. Kimes want to go back to Spain or go to Spain and Scotland. Love it. Dina, thank you for reminding me that you want to go to Egypt, because I know we had to postpone that one. So we're looking forward to getting that back on our radar. All right, so hopefully that shows you how we're going to use the chat function. We had a lot of Africas, a lot of Norways, a lot of, just goes to show there's so many wonderful destinations that we are all yearning to go. Okay, so here's what's going to happen tonight. We're going to kind of toggle between a couple things. One is we really want to, as hopefully you find in typical Pique fashion, inspire you and share ideas. We live this every day, and trust me, we've been living it a heck of a lot these days, but we are never short on inspiration, and this is what keeps us inspired. So we want to share some of those ideas. We are going to focus a little closer to home, and I'll tell you why, and then longer term as well. And then of course, a big impotence for this night, what came from you guys actually, is we've just been getting a lot of questions, and you know, how do we monitor this, and how do we navigate this situation? When can I go? How are you doing this? What's Pique's perspective? So we're going to address a lot of that. And thank you to all of you who had sent in questions ahead of time, because it either told us we were on the right track with our plan or gave us some nuggets that we integrated into the agenda. So thank you ahead of time for all of that. All right, so let's get started. One other thing actually that I do want to mention is that we do want to inspire you. We do. It's our job. We feel it's our job. We get to share the world with you. But if of any time, this is the time it has to be on your terms, right? We will decide together when it's right for you and where is right for you. And that's a really important thing, because of course we all want to travel, and there's going to be some places and times that we can go sooner than later. But just know that we want to be really in partnership with you on that, so that everybody's health and safety, regardless, comes first. All right, let's get going. We are going to start with a poll. And this is just kind of a curious questions for you, and it's going to come up on your screen. So all you'll have to do is click the response you want, and then it's going to have some live results for us that we'll be able to comment on, and you'll get to see how your peers are feeling about travel. But right now, what we want to do is pull up a poll that basically asks you, let me see, and hold on, sorry about that. I'm going to pull up okay. Can everybody, okay, hopefully you can see it. I'm just going to leave it up there. Just pick one of your pick which one is most relevant to you. When do you think you will take your next domestic trip? So this is within the United States. Is it July through September, October through December, first quarter, second quarter, or later? Or you're just not sure because we're navigating the landscape. And again, this is domestic. Where do you think you will go on your next domestic trip? When will it be? Looks like a lot of people are planning to travel yet this year, which is awesome. Awesome. If you're not able to, don't worry about it. If you can't get the poll up or it's not working for you, I think this gives us some great nuggets. All right, then let's end that one and show you that 43, so basically almost 80% of us think we're going to travel before the end of the year, which is great. And I think after tonight, hopefully you can rest assured that in many cases that will be a fine decision. And if not, we're going to plan ahead of time. So we'll talk about that. Okay, next poll is going to be a more curious discussion. When do you think your next international trip will be? You're yearning to go to Norway and Spain and Tanzania. I'm sure Karen Wilkowski, I'm sure you said Africa in some form or fashion. let's see. I'm going to launch this poll. Tell me when you think your next international trip will be. Same date, time period, options, and looks like kind of slightly different results. So it looks like a lot of us are kind of a little more in the wait and see mode, or maybe not even wait and see, but just kind of planning a little further out. Maybe we're thinking we're going to let things settle down a little bit and, you know, take its time to figure things out. So this is basically showing us that over 30%, 33% or so is looking to 2021. And, you know, or I'm sorry, not 23%, a lot of percent, 64. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's not shocking. It's actually kind of you know, kind of what's in our mind as well. So we're going to talk about some of these things tonight. This is great. Thank you for participating. There's going to be one more poll later in the night, but that's great. It kind of tees us up for some of what's to come. So that tells us what you guys are thinking. Let us tell you what national polling is telling us. We monitor this, as you could imagine, not every day, every hour of every day. We are on watching what travelers are doing, how they're feeling, how the industry is reacting, how tourism boards are reacting. 83%, according to a YouGov survey that surveyed affluent travelers earlier this month, 83% of those surveyed plan to travel domestically soon. Soon, 3 to 6 months. So very much like you guys, people have on their radar traveling domestically by the end of the year. So this is very consistent, ironically, national with our little Pique poll, which is kind of fun to see. So we went to you, we went to national. So what are we feeling? Where's Pique's head at in all of this? And again, as you could imagine, we are monitoring this all the time. We're lucky to be part of Virtuoso. We're also part of ASTA, which is the national or global travel association. And so we are privy and get access to so much good information, some that we have to weed through because it gets to be a bit much. But after kind of seeing all of the different sources and what we're looking at and hearing from you guys and on a day-to-day basis, this is kind of what we're seeing too. We really are seeing July and August and into September really is going to be a lot of summer travel, like normal actually. Road trips, very popular right here. And then maybe some closer to home flights. Several people were just telling me, even Amanda Sawyer on our team just booked a flight for May 31st, as did her parents. So these are a popular time anyway, which it will stay consistent, but not shocking in these times as well. September and October, we will see more flying, definitely more short haul flights. Maybe they're starting to have some connections and going a little further, but definitely an increase in flying. And part of this will be because it will time up with when airlines are also starting to reinvigorate some of their routing and deploying some of their grounded aircrafts and stuff like that. All the airlines are definitely stepping up forecasting of seeing an increase in June and then seeing another increase in July and then fall a pretty significant increase. Winter, November through winter is, I think people are going to be heading a little further away. This is definitely going to be some short, some international, but maybe Mexico or Caribbean and, you know, Costa Rica, Hawaii, even though that's domestic, it is a longer haul flight. So that's not a shock. I think that's going to be a lot of our winter discussions. And then of course into 2021, which your poll also said is that gradually throughout 2021, we will be seeing those bans being lifted more and more than we already are. And we will gradually grow in international through 2021. Into that. So that was kind of a interesting, very consistent. I think all three of us, you guys, national and us, are hopefully on a pretty similar. I will put some caveats on those though, that among you, there are varying ranges of travelers. You know, there are those people who are just, get me out of here. I want to go. I don't, as long as it's open, I'm going. And of course we will advise, and we are not your doctor and we are not here. So we will be a little bit of a voice of reason, but in many cases, if you're comfortable and it's open to us, there doesn't have to be a reason to not go if you are comfortable and it's legal and they allow it and you can get there by an airplane. So, so some of you are just fit to be tied. Others are kind of tiptoeing, and you're cautious, and you're optimistic, but you're just cautious. That might be those of you who said, I'm just not sure yet on the polls. And that's very fair, because again, it's a personal decision. And some people, it's vaccine or bust. I'm not going anywhere until there's a vaccine or enough testing or something that's going to make you physically and mentally feel better about that. So just know that we're navigating where you fall in your perspective and feeling of travel too, and balancing it with reality and optimism though. So just keep that in mind. So think about this, and where do you fall in this caveat section, because it does start to shape our discussion with you, or when you talk to your affiliate or your Pique affiliate or your designer. So just keep it in mind. Okay, we will get to lots of questions and answers, and some of them might have been already answered and we're starting to get at it, but really we wanted to start with some inspiration. I couldn't help this photo, and if you got the invitation, which you must have, you probably saw this. Ironically, Iceland is starting to lift bans, so that doesn't hurt this photo either. Northern Lights is optimal in November, December, and so on, which timing is great. But I loved this because I just feel like there's something inspiring and optimistic about this. I don't know if it's just a guttural thing, and I love this picture. So let's dream a little bit. But before we dream, let me tell you some good news. And there's some great inspiration and information out there by what's the state of the state. Now, if we would have been talking a week ago, a month ago, of course, it would have been a very different discussion. And it's still, we have a long ways to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be falsely optimistic, but restrictions are already starting to be lifted, which is great. Now we are monitoring it, and we have to be practical as well. Yes, Iceland is lifting restrictions. Cabo has got a 5-month plan, a 5-phased approach of how they're opening and lifting their bans. Greece, according to CNN, is hoping July 1st to start to allow international visitors. So that is all great news, because it shows progress. It shows that things are happening. That shows progress. Now, where the reality comes in, and where having an advisor monitoring this helps, because this is what we live, is we have to watch what those restrictions mean. Does it mean that if you fly into Iceland and you still have to 14-day quarantine? Well, that doesn't kind of help your trip to Iceland. Or, are they not letting in US travelers? Maybe Greece is open to international travelers, but maybe not from the US. So clearly we are watching and not being falsely optimistic, like I said, because there are parameters to it. But I think the whole point of this is that at least we are moving in the right direction. And with more widespread testing, and with other things that are going on, and luckily people being good with shelter in place, that in many cases it has been shown to work and is moving in the right direction. So that's what I consider very good news, because it's a heck of a lot better than it was a few weeks ago. Okay, so now let's talk some ideas. We're going to share some ideas in different categories. We're going to talk about great American road trips. We're going to talk about some ranch experiences, long weekend getaways, and some others. Because again, when we find out where, when you're comfortable traveling, there's going to be some places and some types of travel that might be a little more conducive and safe, and what we anticipate will be more popular than others. And we are focusing on those categories because of a few things. And industry experts say this, we are, I hope, industry experts, and we are definitely feeling these things, but closer to home. That's one of the reasons why road trips and those short flights are showing popularity in the surveys. National and state parks. We will talk all night long about this. They usually are popular in the summer, but we have some pent-up demand, man. Everybody's going to be getting in their car or flying to a 2-hour flight to then get in a car and do a road trip. Depends on your comfort level. Probably some wider open spaces. I think at least for the short term, and I say short term, probably June is kind of iffy, but definitely July, August, maybe into September. Some of the urban areas might still, need time to come around, but that definitely the wider open spaces, we're definitely looking at, and we're going to talk a bunch about ideas for that. And then ironically, beaches and islands. Now, I'm not sure they ever go off the grid in popularity, but some of us got gypped out of winter getaways if you come from a colder weather place, and surveys again were showing that beaches and islands are among the top 3 desired trips for those of us who have been waiting to go. So let's start with road trips. We're going to share a couple examples with you, and trust me, there's a million, and I know you guys have great ideas too, but we're going to just share a couple with you that we've done for clients and how we approach them. This one was one that ironically I personally worked on, and it was for a great client who had her and her husband and their adult children, and so it was a small group contained in their car, which ironically would be good for now as well, which is part of why we like road trips. And we've also done ones, Suzanne and Rich can attest to the RV trips that are so popular, and we can rent RVs. Demand is quite high right now, but that's another great way to do a road trip. So this one's fun because it started in Santa Barbara, which if you're familiar with that area, charming area, great shopping and restaurants and wineries and things. They started there and drove up the coast and went through Big Sur. And if you see that middle photo down at the bottom, I had them stay in this really quaint little cabin area that was within the redwoods, and you had to cross a little walking bridge over a creek to get to it. And it's like a house, basically. It was beautiful. And so they were within the redwoods, and then they drove up and ended in Carmel and Monterey area. So, again, we did all the accommodations. We planned the routing for them. It even got to the point where I said at mile marker 32, pull over, and there, if you walk a mile down that path, there's a waterfall at the end. So these are some of the things that we can do. And this was one of my personal favorites because frankly, I would like to do this, and I would like to stay in that little cabin in the middle bottom picture, frankly. Next one, this was one Aaron Green worked on for a client. This was in the Northeast. And while Canada isn't technically open to us yet, I sure hope it is, because I love to think they're closer to home. Because if you haven't explored much of Canada, I urge you to. There's so many great gems up there. And this was a really fun one that hit on a few of them. This was one, and ironically, these trips all required a short flight and then a road trip. So of course, there's going to be a huge surge in road trips where you do it from your home in your car. So there's no doubt that will remain a popular road trip, but these happen to be a short flight and then your road trip begins. This one happened to begin in Boston. They drove up to Maine, to Cape Elizabeth and Bar Harbor, and did Acadia National Park, and then went up into Canada. They enjoyed Quebec City, which is on the right-hand side. If you haven't been, if you're yearning for Europe, go to Quebec City once Canada opens and let us help you there. It's gorgeous, charming. You feel like you're in Europe. It's the next best thing, and it's pretty accessible. And on this one, it was a big part of the road trip. And then they drove over to Montreal, enjoyed some of the sights and the landscapes in between. Montreal's a great city with restaurants and other things as well. Went down to Niagara Falls, which is of course the middle picture down there, and ended up in Michigan and then flew back. So that was a really fun one. So we had West Coast, this is Northeastern Canada. And then the last one that I'm gonna talk about is, again, of course, requires a flight. If you wanted to, you can drive it. We have had people drive it, but typically you'd fly to Anchorage and then do a self-drive. It is an amazing self-drive. This top picture is very similar to one that I took when Jim and I were there, and we did a self-drive, and it's such a easy, beautiful state to get to. And of course, especially summer and fall, this is we're going into their amazing season. So, but also everybody has Alaska on their radar. So if this is something that you are considering, I suggest you move it from consideration into actual planning mode, because a lot of people have Alaska on their radar. So we fly into Anchorage. You can go inland to see Denali, which is, of course, used to be Mount McKinley. Now it's Denali National Park. Quaint properties right there outside the park that you can stay at. And then go back out to the coast. Seward, Homer, those areas which are on the coastline, gets you out onto the water whale watching. Of course, it's a big area for humpback whales, orcas as well. And then one of our favorite things that we did, which is on the left-hand side, is to do a little fly out to Katmai National Park. This is Brooks Falls, where you literally get the picture where the salmon is jumping into the bear's mouth. We have that picture. It's amazing. You go out on this little platform and the bears are all, it's amazing. So if you haven't done this and you are an outdoors lover, I highly suggest getting it on your wander list. And, you know, of course, fishing, fly fishing, halibut fishing, glaciers, calving when you're out on the water. So Alaska could go into so many categories, but we chose to put it into the road trips. And then, of course, there's endless possibilities. There are so many. Route 66, Highway 1 in Northern California, the Tetons and Yellowstone and Jackson Hole and the Badlands. I mean, really, I'm not even touching half of the country. There's just so many great ones. So let's get you chatting one more time. What's a favorite? What's a favorite road trip you've done? Tell me. Again, keep your drop down on everyone, and let's see where you're saying road trips are. Oh, Banff. This is the big one for me, Jenny, is why I hope Canada opens is Banff. We love Banff. Yes, Mount Rushmore, the Badlands and Mount Rushmore, and then down to Yellowstone, Glacier Water. Yeah, Trans-Canadian Highway, Cape Cod, Big Island. Ooh, I almost put the road to Hana on Maui on here for those of you who have done it. All right, thank you for that chat. All right, the next one, ranch experiences. Why we like this? Again, kind of more wide open spaces. Most of these are small, so we're not talking 10-story high-rise resorts. We're talking quite quaint. So again, kind of smaller crowds, outdoor spaces, closer to home. These are some of what we're transitioning now for immediate travel. This kind of falls within that. And they are really, like many properties, even though they did before and focusing on cleanliness, they are really taking steps. And we've talked to so many ranch owners in the last few weeks, my team and I, and they're doing amazing things, like even staggering stays so that a room rests for 3 days before another guest comes in, and things like that. So really some good stuff. This one happens to be Paws Up in Montana. We have several clients who love this property. It is kind of the creme de la creme of ranch experiences. So it's a great option. But again, because these are small properties, looking into them sooner than later is usually a good thing. One of our favorites, though, that I am going to share is the ranch at Rock Creek. This is located about 75 miles out of Missoula, Montana. It's only 29 rooms. So again, good for small crowds, great for families or couples or multi-gen to get a couple side by sides. They range anywhere from 1-bedroom suites to 5-bedroom homes, and glamping, so the canvas side kind of tents, which, trust me, you're not roughing it here. It is technically a tent, but if you've been on an African safari, you know what I mean by you're not roughing it. So this just gives you an idea. And a lot of these ranches, this is meant to be, and as is Paws Up, a dude ranch experience. You go horseback riding, you get out with the cattle, you see the wildlife, you can fish. Rock Creek, Ranch at Rock Creek has a stagecoach that you guys can, ride in. It is out in the wilderness, set on acres and acres of open land where you're really kind of having a dude ranch feel. Horseback riding, hiking, archery. This one has kid-specific activities, and of course the wildlife viewing is amazing. Another one I wanted to highlight was Ted Turner Reserves. It's kind of a group of properties, and one that we like the most is Vermejo. This is actually in northern New Mexico. So typically you fly into Denver or Colorado Springs or Albuquerque, and it is set on 550,000 acres of protected land. And this one's a little different. It didn't set out to be a dude ranch where Paws Up and Rock Creek did. This one actually, Ted and his family identified this land because it was very important to the bison, and the bison were really dying off in this area. And he bought this land just to protect the bison. And it eventually turned into an amazing place to be able to appreciate the outdoors. Yes, there's horseback riding and fly fishing and stuff, but it's a little less of a dude ranch cowboy feel, and really just outdoors and nature loving, and really protecting the wildlife and the bison. There's 30 miles of streams, 19 fishable lakes. There is a spa, so that doesn't hurt its reputation at all, I'm sure. But this is just a kind of a nice juxtaposition between a true dude ranch and kind of another alternative. All right. The next category, long weekend getaways. Who of us could not use a long weekend getaway right now? I don't care if you're talking a girls' weekend, because girls' trips have spiked so much in the recent years, and I don't expect that to lag anytime soon. Or you want a little romantic getaway. No offense to the kids who have been in the house for 24 hours, 7 days a week, but nice little 4 or 5 day getaway sure sounds quite good right now. This one happens to be Canyon Ranch in Tucson. So again, it could fall under health and wellness, it could fall under spa, it could fall under anything, but it is wonderful for a long weekend. They do have different things ranging from 4 or 5 days to 7 days. So really, we just work on whatever's relevant to you and what you're kind of looking for. The next one is kind of one of our new favorites. Napa and Sonoma, it always hits the top of the list for most people who, if we were yearning to go to Italy, we have to come to appreciate and call out more our wineries here, which, hey, we have a lot of great ones. Like I said, Napa and Sonoma can hang with the rest of them, but Oregon's kind of one of our new favorites. It's a little more hidden gem type thing. It's starting to be discovered, but what people don't realize is that the Willamette region has 750 little mom and pop wineries. And so it's very quaint. There's great little properties. You fly or drive or whatever into Portland. So if you want to have the city experience, they're on the coast. They have amazing museums and other, great urban setting type of experiences, but you can do day trips out from Portland if that's what you want for wineries, or we can get you out into the countryside to stay at some really cute, quaint properties out into the actual vineyards. And another nice thing about that area is, of course, the Columbia River, which borders Oregon and Washington, is great. The gorge is great for hiking. You can do the American Queen boat for a little river outing if you want to. And I'm loving it. Amy Christensen is saying that she just did Portland and Willamette. I should have called you in to be the guest speaker on this one. I love that we have people familiar, because I do think this is just a great, quaint little area that probably deserves a little love. The next one's Sedona. While I wouldn't normally say Sedona is good for kind of social distancing, because it is kind of a popular area, it is, it's not in a big city. You do have to drive to get there. And Enchantment is one of our favorite properties there. It is a virtuoso property, so we, of course, love that feeling. But I wanted to show it to you, even though it has a higher room count than I would normally love for small boutique properties, you can see how the rooms are laid out. They're 2 at best, two side by sides that, and then they're spattered over like 70 acres. Jim and I had the kids there, and several of our team members and affiliates have gone there over the last year, and it really is a beautiful property. As you can see, it's set within the Red Rocks. So you're outside of Sedona in the valley. Hot air balloons would be floating over in the morning when we were eating breakfast. It was just really, again, for a long weekend getaway, whether it's couples, girls, family, we had our family there. It was great. They do have a great spa, Mi Amo. The middle picture is actually a really interesting experience you can have, where they are really getting you in touch and teaching you about the Navajo traditions and meditation. And it was a really a great thing. And then, of course, one of the biggest reasons we love it is it's an 1.5 hour drive from the Grand Canyon. So to do a private guide to take you hiking one day or any of that stuff. Of course, if the Grand Canyon's one of the road trips or a big national park you want to do, then clearly staying closer might be an option for you. Ending it at Enchantment for 2 nights to have the spa experience might be an add-on, but just keep it in mind, because we do love this area. And then the last one for little weekend or long weekend getaways is Lake Kora in upstate New York. Giving a shout out to Joe, who's our affiliate in New York City. Upstate New York, this is one of those beautiful properties. It's 1,000 acres and the lake is 500 acres. So you can tell it's charming, cabin-like. It's very peaceful, quiet, great outdoor activities. But again, for a long weekend, just to get away, pretty easy to get to and beautiful to get to. And there's 7 lakeside lodges that equate into about 12 guest rooms. So keep it in mind. So of course, the outdoor activities, the canoeing, hiking, fishing is great, but also they have some fun indoor activities, like they have a bowling alley and squash court and ping pong. So again, whether it's for the family or couples or girls, whatever it is, there's kind of a good mix for you in that area too. Again, so many we could go through, but I'm just trying to give some little inspiration and fun stuff. And then I mentioned before to you that ironically, beach destinations and islands are huge right now for people, that when they're thinking about traveling, that these are areas that they would want to go. I think we want to go there anytime, but really we're looking for a little bit more intimate experiences. And I just wanted to highlight a couple islands. If you know me and Jim, you do know that we're a little biased to Hawaii because we lived there. And, you know, it is home to some beautiful properties on Big Island and Maui and Oahu and others. But what people don't always realize is Kauai, which Ann and Frank Keim, shout out to you. We were supposed to be on Kauai together with our families over spring break, so we'll have to postpone that. But Kauai is very charming, smaller population, great little road trippy activities. So we love that. But then more so too is an island called Molokai, which the picture on the lower left is, and Shank's given me a shout out that he stayed at this house. We've had a few clients stay at this house. It's called Manahale Estate, and it's a private home with a couple outbuildings with kitchenettes and bedrooms and stuff in it too. So it's great for families. And we went with another family, our dear friends Dan and Val O'Reilly and us, and then our other friends, the Olsons. We've dragged along anyone come with us on this. But you can kind of tell from this view is not only is the property beautiful, it has a pool, you're on a private 3-mile beach that when we went down there the first time, there were no footprints. So talk about social distancing, man, I'll social distance here anytime. And then the right-hand side is also Molokai, but also to know about it is there's such great activities there. It's quiet. There's no stoplights. There's not really resorts. So it's why we like the private home rentals there. It is home to the highest sea cliffs in the world. It's amazing. Kalapapa, the leper colony, many of you know, is on Molokai. Great mountain biking, other things. And then Lanai is a sister island to Molokai, and it's easy to take the ferry over to Lanai from Maui. I always say it's kind of a sightseeing transfer, because if you're going during whale season, or even if you're not, the dolphins and just being out on the water, we take the ferry over to Lanai. Again, just some really fun island experiences. The other thing too, you know, to know, St. Lucia and Turks are starting to lift their restrictions. So we definitely think there's going to be some surge maybe in going there. Belize has had very low incidence of COVID, and now they're COVID free. And of course, there's several islands off of the coast of Belize that we love that have amazing property. Cayo Spanto in particular is very quiet. Aaron's had guests there. So keep it in mind, because this is one that Hawaii, of course, in particular, the governor has locked down yet, but it will be a rolling open as well at some point. So keep that in mind. It's hard not to love any beach or island experiences, I think. All right. The next one, just to give some shout out to boutique properties. Again, if you're fans of the all-inclusive big resorts, that's great, because all-inclusive's not a bad idea, because as restaurants start to open as you travel and stuff, knowing that you have good choices on property is not a bad idea. However, for the sake of tonight's conversation, I'm just focusing on a few little boutique-y ones, because again, because of room count and people and big crowds and trying to avoid that, let's take advantage of the time and go to some of these hidden gems that you may not know about or want to discover. And a couple that just have come to mind for us is National Geographic has a group of properties called Unique Lodges of North America, and these happen to be three that are really on our radar. Fogo Island Inn is on Fogo Island off the coast of Newfoundland, and this has been on Erin Green's bucket list for ever since I've known her, and probably before. It's just a very cool property and very limited room count. And the two on the bottom, one is the ranch at Laguna Beach. So if you're heading to California, again, small room count, quaint property. And then the one on the right is St. Simon's Island. It's a little island off of Georgia. And this is the lodge at St. Simon's Island. So again, this one only has like 12 rooms, or it's, again, small and kind of more intimate. So wanted to give a little shout out to some of our favorite boutique properties too that are usually on our mind. And there's many, as all of these topics, there's many of them, but we had to pick a few. And then I did want to just call out another trend that we're seeing. And a lot of you guys talk about, you know, getting 2 families together or getting 5 couples together and maybe going to the BVI or off of Belize is a great one that has private yachts. So this is a really good experience and something that we've really been sharpening our skills on and refreshing our skills, because we have several really good partners that offer a range of yachts. If you are a sailor, aka Jeannie Buckner, if you're a captain and you can prove your license and do a little test quick and then you can take your family out, awesome. If you want it fully crewed to serve food and everything else, fine. If you just want a captain, which is just the middle of the road, and you bring all your own food and prepare your food. So there's ranges of what you can do with these yachts and where you can do them. So we are looking really primarily right now at Central America, Caribbean, you know, off the coasts of the US. But of course they have options in the Mediterranean all over when we get to that point too. But closer to home and more private experiences, we really kind of like this, because once you get a couple families together, or you have a few couples that can split the price, it starts to really be a worthy discussion to have. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some inspiration. Those are some ideas. There's millions, but those are a few top ones that we wanted to focus on that are closer to home, smaller, maybe a little more outdoorsy instead of super urban, and just give you some thought starter ideas. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the value of a designer. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is precisely the whatever 20 slides that I just showed you. Because a lot of those, I mean, a road trip to the Grand Canyon, or you know, booking a small boutique property and things like that, those to some of you may be something that you're just comfortable doing. And I don't blame you. If you've used Pique before, hopefully you could talk to this slide about how, you know, the partnership is very valuable for each of us and what it does. But in times like this, I think you're going to realize the value of a designer is even more than it maybe was before, or it's more magnified, I should say. It's probably the same, but it might be more magnified and cherished. So the other thing, the reason I picked this photo is because I wanted to tell you that as much as I would love to be alone in that canoe right now, having a designer means you're not alone. And in these travel days, I think that's a pretty important point. So let me tell you why I'm biased of needing a travel designer, other than I own Pique Travel, of course, is a few things. I've mentioned throughout this presentation the knowledge and the access that our team has. You saw the slide at the beginning. I don't care if you're using a designer on our Pique team or one of these amazing affiliates that are all over the world. We are all dedicated to knowing, growing, traveling, and understanding this industry now more than ever. And the access and the knowledge that we are able to share with each other is so fun and ridiculous that if anything these last couple months has shown, it is the power of the collective good in our team. And I love that. And of course, being backed and being part of Virtuoso surely doesn't hurt, but giving access to things that you might not know of. Monitoring the restrictions is key right now, state by state, country by country. Of course, we've talked about that. Negotiating the best terms we can. We are an advocate for you. We try to tell you this all the time, and hopefully you feel it even if we don't tell you. But understanding and negotiating the terms is a critical part of this world we're living in. And then protecting your investment. People have different thoughts about travel insurance. We have come to know a lot about travel insurance. We did before, but we sure do now more than ever. And what we're trying to do as an organization and as our affiliates is really kind of propose and come up with for each individual traveler a low risk or no risk proposition. If we can have good terms, if we know the restrictions and we have insurance and we put a lot of these things together, and there's no risk or low risk, maybe you only have to put 20% down for a deposit and it's fully refundable up to 30 days before travel. That's a pretty good proposition. That takes a lot of risk out of being able to go out on the fence and book something for September. So we help navigate that, and protecting that investment is a really important one. And then ensuring an amazing experience. And the reason I say this of a designer is not that you can't create an amazing experience for yourself. Of course you can, but things like that are going on right now, national parks, many of them are not open. And when they do start to open, they're going to open with nominal or a fraction of the capacity. So if you're road tripping from Minneapolis to Yellowstone or Custer or the Badlands, and you, like we would have last summer, pull into the park and go into the entrance and expect to get your pass and go around and see the elk and the buffalo and whatever, it's not going to happen this year. They are limiting the park passes. So you have to make reservations. You have to know. So if you go out there and they tell you that, well, the next park pass isn't available for 8 more days, that's kind of ruining your experience when you are heading to Yellowstone as a destination. So things like that, again, because we live and breathe this, we're monitoring all of that. And same thing with attractions. And somebody mentioned Disney World up front or other things. I joke as an example that we love Austin, Texas. And if you like live music, you probably love Austin, Texas too. But right now, if you go to Austin and either the restaurants and bars aren't open or they're only letting 10 people in at a time, it's kind of defeating the point of the experience you were hoping to have. So these are just some of the dialogues I just wanted to remind you of if you didn't know, because domestic travel or some of this closer to home stuff isn't always thought of for a designer being a partner to you. But I would encourage you at least to have a discussion if it makes sense, because it is navigating a little bit of a different world than we thought. All right, next up is we are going to talk about the new face of travel. And I'm going to go quickly because I'm running out of time. So I want to give some time for questions and answers. But I'm going to do this really fast because this was a lot of questions that came in from you. And it was, what's travel going to look like? So I was going to do a chat here about what you think it's going to look like. So if you have some thoughts, please roll them into chat. But I'm going to keep going here because this was a big one that you guys wanted us to discuss. So I'm going to go through it and I'm going to take you on a little trip with me, literally. First, we're going to go to the airport because we're going to be flying somewhere. And what are we going to see? They're going to be asking you to wear a mask. All the employees are going to be wearing a mask. There's plexiglass at the counters. They're going to be asking you to check in on your cell phone. They're not going to want you to use the kiosks because they don't want everybody touching them. They might be allowing less people at the gate, and you might be getting tested before you depart. You might need to show proof of health. At some point, we might need to carry health passports with us or show a doctor's note that we do not have the virus or that we've had it or at some point that we're vaccinated for it. You're going to see numbers declining in dining clubs and sky clubs and things like that. But our first step on our journey was to go to the airport, and this is kind of what that airport experience is going to look like. Then we're going to get on the plane. Obviously, planes are a little more grounded these days than we would love to see. But as they start to open up more and lift starts to go again, these are some things we're going to see. Henry Hartefeld, who is the voice of the travel agency, you may see him on CNN or CNBC. I was on the phone with him last time, and he called out a few key things. Extra time between flights. They're going to deep clean the planes more. Again, they're going to ask you to wear masks. The flight attendants are going to be wearing masks. Of course, short term, they're talking about leaving the middle row open. Of course, all of this has opinions, I'm sure, from all of you and us as well. But I'm just giving you a lay of the land as we go on this journey. Others, Emeritus is already testing before you get on your flights. So with the airlines, these are things. They're going to be boarding from the back of the plane to the front like we used to do in the old days. So those little changes. Tours and transfers, what to expect. Actually, I lost my hotels one. So I'm going to just tell you about hotels really quick, because we landed, we got to the airport. We probably hired a private driver to get us to our hotel because we don't want to get into a taxi cab that everybody has been manhandling. At the hotel, they probably asked you to check in with your smartphone ahead of time. So you're skipping the front desk. You're probably using that smartphone, or you're getting a wristband or some other technology device to use as your key to get into your room. Our amenities, I'm sorry, gone are the fruit basket days and wine bottle and things that somebody had to put in there. And here are the days of maybe a little package of hand sanitizer. And at least in the short term, these are going to be some things we're seeing. You might have noticed of protective coating on the doorknob or on the elevator buttons. They're going to extreme measures. Some are even hiring. I had the owner of the Baccarat in New York City told me that he hired a director of hygiene so that they could go around and really evaluate what are they missing and what needs to happen. Okay, now I'm jumping to tours and transfers, and this is something I like because we kind of liked it before. We do. Our trusty travel advisor, of course, told us to skip the line at the Vatican, so you're not standing in the crowd and you get access immediately. And then you're doing a private guide that's maybe after hours for a museum tour. Don't mind that on this trip we were just in Rome and now we're in London, but you get the idea. Private, after hours, skip the line, any of these kind of little nuggets. And then, of course, I'm going to hire James Bond type looking dude down there, not only for a one-time travel transfer, but he's going to be our driver in the same car the whole 4 days that we're in that city. So we don't have to worry about others getting in and out and things like that. So if you were one of those that you're like, vaccine or bust, or I'm not sure, I'm kind of tiptoeing, or I'm just not sure what to expect. These are the things that the industry is doing to, as bans start to lift and restrictions start to lift, this is what the industry is doing to prepare for us and to make sure we can feel good and be safe once we do travel. I'm just going to give a shout out to the cruises because, of course, they are hurting the most. Again, technology is going to be key. It's going to be your room key. It might be your menu at dinner. They are not doing buffets anymore. This goes to show for hotels and stuff too. Smaller ships are going to be king. We do love river cruises, as you know. 120 guests is pretty nice, and they're taking extra measures. So I'm coming to the end here, and then I want to open it up for any final questions. And I'm sorry if you can hang on just a few minutes past 8. I hope it will be worth your time. But, you know, this is something that I really have been thinking a lot about. And if you don't know me and you can't see my video, that is me. I was in India a year ago, and I see a couple of my warrior women on the chat too. But, you know, it's our job and it's our passion to deliver a very high touch personal experience for our travelers, for our friends, for our families, for ourselves. And how do we do that when we are creating a no touch world? We're hand sanitizing everything, where everybody's got to wear masks, and you can't go to the front desk. You got to check in with your phone. This is the reality. Some of these will be short term. Some of these are going to stick and be around for a while. And some of that's good. We're realizing that maybe some of our practices were not that great. So this is a really sensitive thing to me personally and to our team and our affiliates, is we do not want to lose the private guides and the little farm to table experiences and the meeting the locals and some of the things that we love to bring to you. And obviously, if it's safe and if it makes sense and it's in a place that's warranted to go to and is safe. But it's a really interesting question to me because it is what we do and we're adapting it to an interesting world right now. So keep that in mind. Okay, where do we go next? This is what we all want to know. Hopefully we gave you some great ideas tonight and some inspiration to get back out there. There's no doubt there's pent-up demand. It's just who's going to let us in and when are they going to let us in, because when they do, we're going. And beyond all these countries, each state, frankly, is at a different stage of the pandemic. And we spend a lot of our time every day monitoring and getting alerts from CDC and the World Health Organization. And, hopefully you just watch the 6 o'clock news and get your thing. We are living and breathing this because it is who we are and what we do. And so luckily, as we mentioned in the good news, several are starting to open. Greece, I mentioned July 1st, St. Lucia, Turks, Iceland, Cabo is having that 5-phase plan. July is their international airport opening back up. So, keep that in mind. And then the last thing I'm going to do is ask you to do a poll. And this is what we're hoping to hear from you on this one. If you travel in the next 6 months, what kind of trip do you think you're going to be taking? Is it a domestic road trip? That might mean flying to somewhere. It might be driving from home. It's maybe a short haul flight where you're flying out to Portland, from Minneapolis, 2 or 3 hours. Is it a long haul? Is it beach or island? Maybe you don't know if you're even going to be traveling yet within 6 months, or you just don't know. Okay, so this is interesting again, right? The top 2 are what we were predicting. I actually hope you changed your mind from when you came into this and didn't think you'd be traveling, and maybe now you're inspired to travel or know what's possible and that you have advocates on your side and friends on your side. But interesting. So 66% are thinking some kind of domestic, either short haul flight or a road trip. Love, of course, the beach destination at 11 or 12%. So thank you for participating in that. All right, so then to end us, we are looking at 2021, of course. We're looking to next week, frankly, but we love what the rest of this year is going to do on our domestic and closer to home, and hopefully Canada, hopefully the Caribbean, and let us go to these islands and stuff. But we also, of course, are big time looking to 2021. And the reason I wanted to bring up looking to 2021 with you is it's very interesting right now is we are shoving 2 years worth of travel into 1 year. Many of you on this chat have been working with us to postpone your trips. Many of you have credits on file at places in like Spain and Italy and Greece and wherever. We are not alone. 4.7 million Americans traveled to Europe in March, April, or May in 2019. That's just Americans. That's not the Aussies that we see every time we travel. It's not the Chinese millennials who are traveling like crazy right now. So imagine what 2021 is going to look like. And it already is, because we were planning trips for 2021. And now we're pushing all our trips from 2020 into 21. So the reason I say this is that, again, whether it's with Pique, it's with your affiliate designer, it's on your own, whatever, I just implore you to consider planning ahead, because availability is becoming an issue. And like I said, if we can deliver a low risk, no risk proposition and protect your investment and walk you through all the things that, trust me, we don't want to cancel or postpone your trip just as much, if not more, than you don't want to cancel or postpone that trip. So keep it in mind, because as we look to 2021, demand is high, availability is modest. So keep it in mind and take it as a case by case. It's such a personal decision. When you're ready, turn to us if that's appropriate. And we can't wait to get traveling again. And we hope you can't either. And I think the polls show that you can't. All right. I'm sorry, I talked fast and too much, but I'm going to ask Erin to come on and see what other questions or comments that are worth bringing up here with me, Erin, to address through the chat.
Yeah, so we don't have a ton, but we had one question about if we know what our hotel partners are doing in terms of safety and cleaning and sanitation.
Yes,
Um,
and yeah, and so ironically, I'm sorry, my slide um, went into La La Land somewhere, because I did talk about when I was on the journey of our trip together. Hotels are doing a lot, and ironically, just to point out, they actually had already been doing quite a bit, but they're of course doing more. And also, I thought it was interesting. Uh, the Baccarat owner was telling me that they're also making it more seen that they are doing cleanliness things. Not cheesy, and not because of course you want to still have a good experience, but they want you to see that they're wiping down things. Many of them are actually sanitizing the luggage when you get in. They're going keyless, or they're having you use your phone. The dinner seatings, um, they're not doing buffets either if they did them before. The dinner seatings they're going to be limiting how many people can be in the dining room at one time, and you're probably going to have 2 empty tables between you and the next set of guests. So again, all these social distancing, even if restrictions are lifted, many of these guys plan to extend this, just especially till there's a vaccine, but just to let people know and feel better about it. Many of the hotels have put in hospital grade air filters in the rooms. So things like that, a lot of it you're not going to see as a guest, but each category of the industry is working very hard to do these things.
I know Hilton announced today that, or maybe today, past few days, that they have a new partnership with both Lysol and Mayo Clinic to kind of collaboratively figure out what works best and really is the best for them.
Yes, actually, I've saw this week 3 hotel. I don't know how they'll use the hospital, partnerships, but I'm sure advisories at least, how effective is hand sanitizer. Everybody has their opinions about masks. Everybody has their opinions about things, but if the hospitals don't know and can't advise the hotels well, then I'm not sure who could.
Another question, when should if they want to travel in 2021, when is the ideal time to start that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm going to say sooner than later, because that is the right answer. But within a couple months, for sure. If you can do 12 months in advance, I would, for sure, because you're not alone in thinking about going to Spain, for example. And again, it goes back to the low risk, no risk thing. Is if our partners or our hotel partners or whoever can give us very favorable terms, and we can limit the deposit and make sure it's refundable. Things like this, if these things can come into play. And then just a side note too, insurance, everybody has an opinion about insurance, right? And one thing to know is that the other thing about travel insurance that's really important right now is they do cover supplier default. So if and we are very lucky. We have some of the best partners in the world. So we vet them out very closely. We try to find out if they put the client money in escrow. And so we do diligence for sure on our partners, but there are going to be some that might not make it. Insurance covers supplier default. If you and Aaron and our team can advise you if you buy the insurance within a certain period of time and all this kind of stuff. So again, it's just another way to protect your investment. If something dramatic happened, you would be covered. And that's what we're trying to do. We have a checklist of things that we are trying to make sure that if we are going to help you plan a trip, like I said, we don't want you to postpone or cancel that either. It's a lot of work for us. So keep that in mind. So I would say 12 months or more if you can, especially if it's a Greece, Spain, Italy, some of these usual suspects. You in the world, man, are pent up and want to go. So if we can give you a low risk, no risk, then let's start chatting, because we're running into some stuff. So
Frank asked about private air travel options, even short haul, and if those are affordable or what options there are.
yes, and ironically, I had that in here tonight. Private yachts and private jets are a topic that our team has been talking about a lot. Yes, private jets is definitely something that people are looking more and more into, and not just for domestic travel, Caribbean, Costa Rica, other places too. Yes, very viable. We have a couple great partners through Virtuoso that allows us a range. We just were on the call with somebody and he told us the range of the fleet that they have. So that depends on if there's 2 or 4 of you and if there's 3 families going together or whatever. I'm not going to tell you it's the cheapest option because as you could imagine, it is, but the value of a private jet experience, first of all, is amazing. And second of all, the value of your safety, your peace of mind. Are you a vaccine or bust type of person? This is a good option for you. And if you're splitting the cost up with a couple of families, it's definitely at least worth the ask to find out if it's viable. Aaron, you're muted.
Our most recent question here was about traveling to remote locations, which seems wonderful. But if someone gets sick, can you get home, medical insurance in those places? What's
Yep.
kind of the risk factor there?
Yep. So that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked it because this is another good thing to know about insurance. And if you had insurance and have feelings about it, you probably also, like we did, have learned a lot recently. Insurance does not cover canceling for the fear of contracting the virus. So unless you have a policy that is canceled for any reason, which there are limited partners now that offer that, they had to remove it because they were getting slammed. If you have a policy cancel for any reason, no questions asked. You could cancel 48 hours in advance. You can say, I don't want to go because I'm not comfortable because they just had 10 new cases, and no questions asked. We file a claim and your eligibility is very good. If you have a normal policy, you cannot cancel for the fear of contracting the virus. However, when you are in country or in this remote location, as JR is saying, if you contract it while you're there or you get sick while you are there, if you need medical evacuation or hospitalization, the policies that we sell include that type of coverage. So yes, you would, and in fact, many of it covers medical evacuation. So if something really dramatic happened, getting sick there, JR saying, if they get sick while they're there. Okay, your question about medical insurance, not travel insurance, that is a case-by-case basis. And many times medical insurance has very limited coverage when you are in remote places or far, far away, which is a lot of times why travel insurance either supplements what you don't have through your medical or increases the coverage that might be part of your normal plan. This is something that if we got into a case-by-case basis and you had some place in mind, this would be a great time where like Aaron and myself or Ann or Liz or Chris, any of us would usually get our insurance partner on the phone and let's talk through this together. Let's say let's do a side-by-side. Let's make sure that if there's any gaps that your travel insurance is covering it, because we wouldn't want to risk it and put you in a bad position. MedJet, actually my family has MedJet. JR is saying, Aaron's telling JR that MedJet's a great standalone. That's a great option for hardcore medical evacuation and getting you out of wherever you are if you are sick and getting you home back to American hospitals or where you're comfortable.
Dina actually chimed in with a message to me at the same time suggesting MedJet. So a lot of our clients have that as kind of a backup option, either alone or with regular insurance.
Yes,
that's all the questions that have come in, unless anyone has anything last minute they want to type in.
Well, and while we're waiting for that, I really want to thank you. I hope you found this helpful. We are debating about what to do for June. It will probably be virtual. Part of me wants to do a part 2 because think about how much the last month has changed. So much more is going to change in the next month. So we may do some version of this, or we might start to re-engage some of our partners back to you on some of these types of travel. If, A&K domestic, or we have some amazing partners, or some of the national parks, or who knows what it would be. So if you have opinions, we are going to send out a survey in the next day or 2 for those of you who are on with us. So if you could give us some feedback on the 4 or 5 questions that would be in there. And if you have more questions or want to start a dialogue about anything on your mind, or have some of these insurance questions or MedJet or anything, I put Jess's email up there. You can of course email me as well if you choose to, but I always tell Jess that she's more reliable and timely than I might be these days. So email Jessica C at Pique Travel, or the affiliate that you work with if you're working with one of our affiliates around the country, and let us know, because this is a great dialogue. And thank you for all the shout outs. And I'm Karen, you and me both on the travel to Canada. I think that I hope they're so nice, right? That I don't know when they're going to let us in, but that's high on a lot of our lists. So, all right. Well, I'm going to sign off then. Thank you so much for joining us again. I hope it was helpful to you. I wish you were here having a glass of wine with us, and I could hug you, but this is the next best thing in these days, and we'll circle back to that another time. And enjoy your evening. Thanks for spending part of it with us.